Hey, what's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Excited about today's topic. And if you are new coming on here, we will be answering a lot of your questions you have about ADHD, natural health, stuff like that. And what you're going to do is just going to put your questions in the chat. So we're going to spend some time going over some training, going over, why your ADHD is not just a dopamine problem, that there is so many things to look into than just looking at dopamine. And I'll be explaining that here in just a minute. And then I'll spend a good portion of the live stream answering your questions that you do have for me. So I would say go ahead and put those in the chat. Hey, what's up, Wakaza, all the way from Hawaii. Hey. But yeah, so go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and I'll do some training, and let's go ahead and get started. Hey, everybody, Dr. LeGrand here, and today we're going to be talking about why your ADHD is not a dopamine problem, or why is it not just a dopamine problem. And so the first thing that I think of is there is all these different organs that are connected and integrated that have feedback loops and cause very similar ADHD symptoms that can be contributing to your ADHD. And so what I'm referring to is all these important organs that can present just like having ADHD. And so it's something that we definitely have to consider because, frankly, when it is not addressed, it can cause more serious problems down the road. And so the very first thing to really look at that I think is something that is overlooked is looking at the digestive system. And so let me explain why this is so important. Is because the digestive system, first off, 90 to 95% of our neurotransmitters are made in the gut. The other part of this too is about 50% of the digestive system make a lot of dopamine. Okay. So that's something that I also really consider. The other part of this too is if the gut's not working very well, then energy is going to go down. Focus is going to go down, as well as even dealing with things that are going to upset the stomach, right? When you have gassing, bloating, irritable bowel syndrome, that is going to contribute to things also with serotonin going down and other different important neurotransmitters. So if you have like IBS or overgrowth candida or any of these kind of things that deal with digestion, it can contribute to causing ADHD symptoms. So it can also contribute to making things such as like, brain fog can be another issue that you might be experiencing along with your ADHD, focus issues, and so forth. Okay. So that's like, first off, like we have to understand that the gut is so vital for this that we have to get it fixed. And if we don't, we're always going to have these consistent problems with our ADHD. Okay. So that's the first one. The next one is looking at the liver and why the liver is so vital for what we need it to do. So first off, it deals with glucose. Now, why is glucose important? Because blood sugar can impact, let me use a different graph here. In fact, let's just look at blood sugar. If it's just constantly up and down, up and down, and up and down, guess what? Our energy and focus is also going to be just up and down, up and down, up and down. So you better believe that getting your liver under control is going to be vital. And if it isn't working optimally, the gluconeogenesis process isn't going to work so great. And we can deal with insulin resistance, which that's going to be a problem too. It's going to cause some issues. It's going to cause inflammatory issues. Also, to be able to detox, it's what the liver does. It's the main organ for that. And if it's not working great, you're going to have symptoms of brain fog, focus, low energy, stuff like that. The other thing that's also important here too is iron. iron helps make and build, the liver helps make and build iron, which iron helps carry oxygen and nutrients to the brain. So the brain, that's a terrible looking brain, but you guys get the idea. Is what is required. It's required to provide oxygen nutrients to the brain, but we need the liver to work at its most peak, at its optimal levels. But if it's not, if you have liver enzymes that are elevated, or if you have fatty liver disease, or if you have cholesterol issues, this can be a concern as well. And so we have to look at all the different organs that can possibly be contributing to your ADHD. And the only way to really kind of know this is actually to test for it and to see, okay, is it working like it should? And if it's not, we should fix it. And that gives us a better roadmap of what to do. The other one is looking at the adrenals. So adrenals, when I like to look at this, is seeing if there is an adrenal insufficiency syndrome. So if we look at this as a graph of looking at cortisol, and your cortisol levels are, let's say, very low in the morning, and then all of a sudden they spike, and then they kind of go back down, you're not going to function very well. Because ultimately where they should be at is very first thing in the morning is high, and then they kind of start going down, and then the evening time, they should be low, so you can go to sleep. But if you're like the case where it's highlighted here in red, your energy and focus, if I can spell, focus is going to be low right here. But in the evening time, let's say it's spiked like this, your stress levels are high. What does that do? That is going to impact your sleep. Sleep's not going to be great because these are too high and you're too wired at night. So then you have this vicious cycle that causes this as well. So both need to be addressed. And this can be the main culprit to your ADHD symptoms. And it isn't necessarily dopamine. This is why I say, like, it probably, in a lot of cases, it might not be a dopamine situation that we're dealing with here. There could be some major other issues going on with your hormones and other organs that are just not working optimally, that are making your ADHD symptoms even worse. Now, some other things to consider too is other hormones, such as the thyroid. So the thyroid organ itself releases T3 and T4. Now, thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, that is something that is released in the brain. And that's what specifically does stimulate the thyroid to make T3, T4. Okay. So what if there's an issue with this, but maybe not TSH? Well, it should be still addressed because it will cause things such as low energy, focus issues. But there's also, going back to the liver, which I did mention here too, does help with also making T3 and T4. There's other peripheral organs, even the heart does that. Other interstitial tissues does help with the thyroid. And so if those aren't working optimally, they're not going to make an adequate amount of thyroid hormones. And so you can still feel fatigued, low energy, focus issues, brain fog, all of that. Okay. So the other thing also too is that we need to understand that there's other hormones too that can come and play in here, such as like testosterone, estradiol, progesterone, which doesn't come from the thyroid, comes from your gonads, your reproductive organs, and also DHEA. Now, if those are out of balance, that can also contribute to a lot of the symptoms you're experiencing with your ADHD, of focus issues, mood changes, you name it. But they need to be addressed. They can't be overlooked and just expect that all your problems with your ADHD has to do with dopamine. There is hundreds of reasons of why your ADHD can be not of having all these different symptoms. It's not just dopamine. Okay. Now I'm going to still talk about the brain. The brain thing is really still important. And the thing that we have to understand is play here.